and it will be a nuclear ruin. And then what? What do we do? Pour 400 nukes into North Korea? Yay. What have we proven? Nothing. Nuclear weapons are literally the dumbest thing mankind has ever done. Literally, because it's a suicide pill. But now we come back to the Minuteman III. Why do we need to test it? What is the Minuteman III? Let's just think about it for a second. There are about 400 of these things. They're in silos in the middle of America. They're older systems. They're pretty accurate, but not as accurate as the Trident. They take a long time to fly there. They might be vulnerable to, ballistic missile systems, anti-ballistic missile systems. But and when people tried to defend it, they said by having 400 Minutemen in their silos, we force any enemy who's going to attack America to send at least 800 missiles into what they call a missile sump. So the Minuteman force exists only to attract 800 missiles to strike middle America. Now, if I'm a farmer in North Dakota, do I really want to be rah-rah, ba about this? No, it's stupidity. So we build nuclear weapons simply to attract enemy nuclear weapons. Again, this is real. I'm not making this up. It's a missile sump. Stupidity. And we're going to spend $1 trillion to accomplish this task? Dumb. In submarines, everybody talks about the security of the submarine. And I don't want to get, too sensitive here. Let me put it this way. Submarines are big. You know what else is big that swims under the ocean's water? Whales. And we can detect whales anytime we want to. And I'm not going to give away the farm here. I'm just trying to tell you that giant steel whales cannot hide under the water. So any notion that we can put a boom around the ocean and no one will know about it is stupidity defined. They are tracking the boomers. They're the number one priority target. And the idea that they're going to be able to launch their missiles without any potential interdiction is stupid. And then the B-21 bomber. Why do we need it? Why to penetrate what? If you think that stealth exists today, you don't know anything about modern air defense systems. There is no such thing as stealth anymore. Nothing is stealth. It can be stealthy, but it's not stealth. So we're going to put all this money into a bomber that is ridiculous. In Afghanistan, we had B-2 bombers flying over Afghanistan, dropping these satellite-guided munitions. You know what else was dropping satellite-guided munitions? B-52 bombers that were built before I was born, and I'm an old son of a gun. So, and the B-52 is actually a better delivery system than the B-2. The B-2 is a huge waste of money. It brings no value to any aspect of America's defense. No bomber is going to penetrate Soviet airspace, or Russian airspace, I should say. Probably not Chinese airspace either, which means we're going to be using standoff weapons. So we don't need a stealth bomber to fire a standoff weapon. But we're going to spend $1 trillion doing it because America's married to the triad, the three-legged nuclear deterrence model. And that's just a long way of answering your question. Yeah, it's probably a provocative test.
Well, you also have the W762 low-yield weapons, which, those also increase the chance of a nuclear conflict.
They're designed to increase the chance of war. That's the amazing thing, where for the longest time the United States said, we don't intend to use nuclear weapons first. It's not really what we want to do. We had, Obama starting to back away from it. Then comes Donald Trump. And Donald Trump green lights the deployment of, in all fairness to Trump, the warhead was being developed before him. But he comes in and he says, not only is it a good idea to put the W76-2 low-yield nuclear warhead on a Trident missile on an Ohio-class submarine, but why don't we go ahead and test it in a war game that has the Secretary of Defense pushing the damn button, authorizing the launch against, let's see what we could do that could be the most provocative. We'll just call it Russia A scenario that involves Russia engaged with NATO in the Baltics. So we're going to launch a nuclear weapon as part of our escalate to de-escalate policy, which we claim the Russians have, but we're the only ones who've implemented it and tested it. So we're going to nuke Russia, and in hopes that Russia says, "Oh my God, you nuked me," we're going to back off. The W-76-2 low-yield nuclear weapon was specifically designed to give the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, a wider range of options regarding the employment of nuclear weapons in any possible scenario, including preemption in a non-nuclear reality, meaning it's not preempt to stop enemy from nuking, it's preempting in a conventional sense. It is one of the most destabilizing weapons that exists in the world today. It's deployed, it's on systems, and Biden has not backed away from that policy. If anything, he's doubled down on it.
On the campaign trail, he talked a little bit about being against it, if you remember. So did Kamala
Oh, yeah.
Harris. When she was in the Senate, she spoke out against it. Why do you
Well,
think? Why,
politicians' lips move in campaign trails. Don't believe what comes out.
yeah.
Because here's what happened when you're campaigning. When you're campaigning, you're seeking to win a vote. So you're saying whatever it takes to get the gullible citizen into the poll booth to pull the lever. But once you become president, the reality is what Vladimir Putin spoke about in an interview he gave a little while ago. He says, you could say all the great things in the world. He said, Obama said he wanted to close Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. But what happened? He said, men show up in dark suits and blue ties or red ties. And I think he said red ties. He's wearing a blue tie, and they sit down and they give you the real brief, what really is happening, what the real policy is. And that's called the establishment. People call it the deep state, whatever you call it. There is this reality of constancy in American policy, domestic and foreign and national security, that's driven by a huge system that has no relevance and no response and no connection to the American electorate. So we elect politicians, they come in, they want to make change. The system doesn't budge at all. And Biden started talking about, the nuclear weapons, said he wasn't happy with low yield nuclear weapon. He wanted to talk about disarmament. And then the system came in and they tied his hands up. And that doesn't mean that Biden can't, or any president can't go against the system, but you really want to be expending all of your political bullets on that when your number one priority was, build back better or some other concept. So the system makes it very, very hard for the executive to meaningfully deviate off the chosen path. Yeah. And the chosen path is not chosen by the executive. It's chosen by the system, the establishment, the deep state, whatever you want to call it. It's real, it exists, and it dominates. Is that a cat?
It was, yeah. I find it very interesting that Biden even spoke about it on the campaign trail. I can't imagine most Americans have ever even heard of a W-762 low-yield weapon,
I think he was trying to create distance between himself and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Biden was sort of on his back heels because Trump, he's not a constant. There's no consistency with him. He withdrew us from the INF Treaty. He drew from the JCPOA, but he visited with Kim Jong-un 3 times. So I think Biden was feeling a little bit of pressure as to being seen as being an innovator in arms control to match, Donald Trump's really good relationship with Kim Jong-un.
Well, not just Kim Jong-un, but he met with Putin, he met with Xi, and both. Yeah. He was diplomatic with both of them. Biden, on the other hand, met with Putin, and he said he stared him in the eye and called him
a killer, cold-hearted killer.
Yeah. So who really is being more de-escalatory is the question there. I wanted to move to Ukraine and Russia now, and obviously Ukraine had their recent counteroffensives. Everybody is aware of that by now. I believe you were on. I forget her name, but you were on somebody's show, and you said that you believe that the Kherson was a fixing attack or sort of a feint. I kind of wanted to ask you to elaborate on that, because to me it seemed like it was just another offensive like they did at Kharkov, but this time the Russian forces defended and it just failed. But you seem to believe that it was designed to be more of a feint in order to open up Kharkov.
Well, again, let's just start with the fundamental premise that I have not received the official briefing from Vladimir Putin or Shoigu or Gerasimov or anybody. I don't know
Yeah.
anything. Um, so I'm like everybody else who's looking at this from long distance, trying to figure out what happened. Um, so in the intelligence business, like let's use a little analogy here. At Christmas time, you go out, you always buy Grandpa the 1,000 piece puzzle because it's a pretty picture and it gives Grandpa something to do in the cold winter because he can't go outside. So he spends all winter putting 1,000 pieces together to build this big puzzle. Yay. Um, the intelligence business is taking that 1,000 piece puzzle and removing 700 pieces at random, shaking up the remaining 300, throwing it down, and telling them,